Today I talk about my visit to the Drina River, where we tried to get first insights into the distribution and spawning activity of Danube salmon. I went there with my colleague Gabriel Gruber last May, and yeah, I'm going to present you the few results that we've got today. Before I talk about the Drina River, I wanted to just show you the species once more that we are talking about. I don't know if all of you are familiar with the Danube salmon. This is a beautiful picture Benedikt Reisner took from the Bistrica River in Austria, where you can see the Danube salmon, Bucho. A quick profile of this species. It's the Danube salmon is endemic to the Danube River catchment. So you can find it in the Upper Danube, like in Austria and Bavaria, and then also in Slovakia, Balkan Peninsula, also then in the Lower Danube region, Romania and Western Ukraine. I think it's famous especially for its size. Historically, it could reach up to 1 meter, 1.50 centimeters or even more, and 50 kilograms. I mean, I think it's very rare to find such a big specimen nowadays, but in former times it was not untypical. And it's an apex predator. It's a real flagship species for montane rivers. So it lives in the grayling region, and it's also you can also find it in the barbel region. And I don't know. I had the chance to observe this species many times by snorkeling, so I could observe his behavior, and I would say he is the big five of the freshwater ecosystems. You know, it's a really impressive animal, and very fascinating to observe it and to also do research on it. There's an interesting aspect about the Danube salmon in this context is also that there hasn't been done a lot of research when you compare it to other fish species, other salmonids. So it's there's still a lot to be found out and a lot to be investigated in general. But the problem is that we are losing this species more or less. So I brought, before we dive into the Drina River and have a look what's going on there, I wanted to show you some results of a publication from last year where Stefan Schmutz and colleagues analyzed the distribution of the Danube salmon in the upper catchment, in the upper Danube catchment in Bavaria and Austria. And you can clearly see by this picture that there are only a few populations left there. Can you see my mouse actually? Yeah. So like there's one whitetail population in Styria in the Upper Moor River. What means whitetail? It's a very good status. The adult stock is more than 500 individuals. There is natural reproduction, and this is mainly also because of free-flowing sections, a long free-flowing section that is kind of a key factor for this species and why it can develop a whitetail population. And then there are just a few other left in Austria, like the River Geil or the River Enz or the River Pilach up here. And in Bavaria, also a few rivers left. And all the other rivers where it used to live, the stocks are down or extinct. And one of the key factors why this has happened is that those rivers are heavily fragmented and heavily impacted by hydropower plants. Not only, of course, by hydropower plants, river degradation, river channelization, and other aspects are also of relevance. But there's a clear correlation, I would say, between the quality of the stock or the size of the stock and the continuum. Right. So this is the Upper Danube. In fact, only 7.8% of the rivers still have where the huchen occurred. Only 7.8% in the Upper Danube catchment still have a whitetail population at class A or B. Yeah, so it's a dramatic situation. That brings me to the Balkan region and to this publication from Jörg Freihof and colleagues from 2015. I think most of you know it. where they analyzed the Balkan rivers and their role for the Danube salmon. And the clear message in this report is that the Balkan region is a global hotspot for this species. There are populations found in more than 43 rivers. All those green catchments here that you can see hold vital populations. The main catchments are like the Sava River, the Kolpa and Kupa, or the Una River, the Vrubas. Then when you come further down, you already reach the Drina River and the Drina catchment. So we're talking about a total of almost 2,000 kilometers where we are supporting self-sustaining populations. And on a global scale or on a Danube catchment scale, they say that 65% of all huchen rivers are located in the Balkan region. So there is a quite clear message that we have to protect these rivers, especially when you compare it to what has been going on in the upper catchment, in order to maintain these species. But of course, there are many threats. So these are the hydropower plants that are planned or already under construction. And when you have a look at this area here, down here at the Tara Drina River, where we did our analysis and that we visited, you can see that there's quite a high number of hydropower plants planned or even that have been realized. So yeah, let's have a look at what happened last year when we visited the Drina River, which was in the beginning of May. This was scheduled because it was said that this is the main spawning period, or this is the main time when the spawning takes place, beginning of May. So we've been in contact with the Fisheries Association down there, the Mladica Fisheries Association. Mladica actually means huchen, or Danube salmon. And what were our goals in this area? First of all, to identify the current state of occurrence of the Danube salmon in the Upper Drina River and its tributaries. So we wanted to know where you can find this species, what are the distribution areas or the reaches where you can find these species. We also wanted to find out a little bit more about the densities of adult fish. And then, of course, we wanted to locate the breeding grounds of the Danube salmon in the Upper Drina, which you can see here in this picture, and also its tributaries. So these were the main two tasks. The study region is, you can see it here in this figure down here. The study region refers to the Mladica Fisheries Association. So these are the rivers here that we have been looking at within this circle here. So there is the Drina River, which is formed by the Tara and the Piva. So the Drina River actually originates in the Montenegrinian border at the confluence of the Piva River and the Tara River, and then drains some 350 kilometers to the Sava River before the Sava enters the Danube. So here's the confluence, and then the Drina goes down here and further on. And then we have some main tributaries, right? The Jehotina, the Sudjeska, the Pielava, and the Bistrica. For us, all those rivers were of interest, but we had to put the focus on the Drina itself, then also on the Jehotina, on the Bistrica, and the Sudjeska. Yeah? The Pielava is not of such a relevance because it's a quite small river, it's quite small tributary, and as we heard, the Danube salmon is not really occurring there. At least it is not known, or it looks like it's occurring there because it's too small. Maybe a few words also about the Tara and the Piva. The Piva River is just at the border of our study area. It is heavily impacted by hydropower usage, hydropower production. It is there's a big impoundment further upstream, causing hydropleaking impact on the Drina and the Piva itself. And the Tara, it also worth to be mentioned. I mean, most of you might know that Tara Valley, which is, I would say, world famous. for its beauty and also for kayaking and rafting. Yeah, it's a very impressive landscape, but it is really hard to investigate it, to find out what's going on there, because it's a very deep valley or gorge, in fact, and not a lot is known about this river or about the fish stocks in this river. So here you can see like the sizes of our investigation area. So in total, what is it? Almost 100 kilometers we've been looking at. And here you can see the situation of planned hydropower plants in the area, in the study area and beyond. So in total, we talk about 14 hydropower plants, which are planned within this circle here, and then some additional ones in Montenegro and further downstream in the Drina and further upstream in the Bistrica. In the Bistrica, there are actually 3 under construction, but I will talk a little bit more about that later on. And then also you can see in the Sutjeska, the upstream regions, there are a few planned, and also small scale, not only big scale, yeah, some small scale or a lot of small scale hydropower plants in the Drina itself, in the center of our investigation area. There's also one plant, Boku, which is a bigger one. And I think you could say it's already under construction, but the construction was stopped. And I think they're doing some new assessments there, environmental impact assessment, where they're about to go on with the construction of the hydropower plants. Okay, a few pictures. So to make it more clear for you what we are talking about. So this is the Drina Valley, and the Drina itself. It's a beautiful river. It's a huge river. So we talk about a mean discharge of 150 cubic meters per second. So we don't have anything comparable here in Austria, I would say. All our rivers are smaller that could be compared with it, like the River Drava or the River Enz. They are quite smaller than the River Drina. So when the first time I came there, I was like, okay, wow, that's a river. It's really impressive, and many challenges come along when you want to do some research there, when the size of the river is that big. But it was, on the other hand, very impressive because I saw those structures. You can see that this river is not so impacted by river regulation measures or other impacts. So it was interesting to see how a river can look like when it is still free flowing and when it is not channelized and stabilized. But a big deficit this river has is hydropeaking. So as I said, the Piva has a big impoundment. It causes the hydropeaking. And here you can see the discharge from 1st of April until end of April. And you can see that the hydropeaking is a big topic there. And so they're adding some 100 cubic meters per second per day, which means water level changes of 1 to 2 to maybe sometimes 3 meters. And this is, of course, for the fish fauna there, a disaster. Then we go on to the Sutjeska. It's the smallest river that we had a look at. Here you can see the confluence of the Sutjeska and the Drina River. It's rather the upper area of our investigation area. So here it is. The Sutjeska is very pristine so far, quite hidden. It's hard to approach it. It's hard to get there. And it is said that it is used for spawning by the Danube salmon. Then we go on to the Jehotina. The Jehotina River is absolutely pristine. There is no civilization, more or less no civilization, just a few. Like at the confluence with the Drina, you can find a bigger city, Foča it's called. So that's down here. But then the whole upstream area, there are 1 or 2 tiny small villages, as you can see down here in the picture. Other than that, it's completely untouched and a really beautiful valley, as you can see. And the in-stream structures are quite impressive. This is just one picture that shows us how the heterogeneity of and also the dynamics of this river. And it is also said to be a huchen habitat. Then next one, Bistrica River. Yeah, a rather small river compared to the Jehotina at least. And the biggest difference there is that there are already 3 hydropower plants under construction, as you can see in those pictures. These are the 3 hydropower plants. So we went there to have a look at what's going on. Could see that the hydropower plants are under full progress, or the building of it. And yeah, of course, they already cause an impact. So here you can see the confluence of the Drina River and the Bistrica River. Just want to add the map here as well. So we're now looking at the Bistrica River here, which is a tributary on the left-hand side to the Drina on the left shore. And we've been there during the spawning season. The construction work was going on during the spawning season, and the river was as turbid as it is shown here on this picture. Yeah. So this spawning season, I would say, was lost for the Danube salmon. And yeah, we will talk a little bit more about the consequences in the future, of course, of those hydropower plants. Right. So a few pictures to show you the beauty and also the situation of the rivers there. And so what were our methods? Our first goal was to identify the current state of occurrence of the Danube salmon in the Upper Drina River and its tributaries. So in order to do so, we consulted the local fishery representatives of the Mladica Fisheries Association. You can see me with Vladimir Trivon. He's a really nice guy. He was super cooperative. He was telling us everything he knew about the Drina River. And we talked about, the abundance of adult fish, the location of spawning sites, the fisheries management that they apply, and of course also the threats. It was quite challenging because he doesn't speak about English, but we managed to communicate with Google Translate. So we were typing in everything we wanted to know, and he translated it. And he was providing information on all those aspects. And in order to locate the breeding grounds of the Danube salmon in the Upper Drina Basin, we did a drone survey, and we also measured the water temperature of the tributaries from March until May. So here you can see the sites of our temperature loggers. So we have sent them there, and Vladimir was so kind and put them into the water, and they were logging the temperature for us. But of course, we only got the information later on after May, and could analyze how the water temperature developed. And here you can see the regions that we have been flying with the drone, that we've been searching for spawning sites. So we've been searching in the Drina itself, the Jehotina, here's also the Drina, and in the Sudjeska. So that brings me to the results of the spawning activity. And as some of you might know, it's not easy to map the spawning season of a specimen or of a species, because spawning is very much dependent on the development of the water temperatures. And we were quite unlucky last year because in early April, high temperatures led to an untypically early start of the spawning season in the investigation area. So you can see this here by those rivers that we've been where we have been measuring the water temperature. There's a 8 degrees temperature threshold that needs to be reached, and when this temperature threshold is reached, or when this temperature is reached, then salmon starts to spawn. And this temperature was reached 3 weeks or even 4 weeks earlier than usually. So in other words, we were late when we came to the Drina River in the beginning of May, because the spawning took place, for example, here in the Bistrica at mid of April to the end of April, and then the temperature dropped and it stopped and it was over, basically. You can see here in all those rivers, the temperature rises at the beginning of April, reaches 8 to 10 to even more degrees. And this is when the spawning took place, and then whoop, a drop, and the spawning was gone. And this is where we arrived. So unlucky, but we're not stupid. We had our eyes there. We asked Vladimir to please monitor the spawning activity in the region, even before we were there. And he did a really good job. The only thing that was that he couldn't cover the whole area, but he was focusing on the Jehotina and the Bistrica River, and we got some information from there. So the results regarding the spawning activity. So based on the manager's statement, so based on Vladimir's statement and also the drone footage, we can see suitable spawning areas in the whole study area, except for the Drina River. But the Drina River is not, it doesn't work for spawning because of the hydropeaking for successful spawning. But all the other rivers, all the tributaries are quite valuable areas for reproduction. So the Jehotina here, the Bistrica and the Sutjeska work perfectly for spawning. And in the Bistrica River, we actually were able to see some spawning. So the pictures here on the right side were taken by Vladimir during the spawning season in April, and he could find 9 spawning sites. And he could also see that the spawning was limited to the lower 5.5 kilometers here, because the fish couldn't reach those upper areas where they also usually used to spawn. Yeah, so the Bistrica hydropower construction sites here prevent now huchen from migrating upstream. So those 2 kilometers here are lost for spawning, but downstream he was able to observe 9 spawning sites. So that means it doesn't mean, but he also saw like 2 to 3 Danube salmon per spawning site. He wasn't able to observe the whole river because it's quite hard to access it. And so he means that, or he told us that he was able to observe like the half of it. That means that in total, he expects that there are 15 spawning sites within the entire stretch of this lower section of the Bistrica River, which would mean 3 rats per kilometer. From the Jehotina, we also have some information. There was 1 spawning site observed close to Foča, but due to time restrictions, he couldn't find more. And unfortunately, the Danube salmon there were removed by poachers, which is quite typical there. Poaching is a big issue in this area. So I think even with hand grenades, those huchen were killed and harvested from the spawning sites. In the Sutjeska down here, which is also said to be a spawning area, no Danube salmon was observed in 24 by Vladimir at least. So that brings me to the adult fish stock. What is the number of adult fish in the area? So in total, the Fisheries Association assumes that there are about 250 individuals in the area. And these are his guesses for the number of individuals per kilometer. So 1 to 3 in the Bistrica, 2 to 3 in the Jehotina, and 3 to 5 in the Drina River itself. So adult fish only. From the Piva, Sutjeska, and Tara, he doesn't really know. From the Sutjeska, he assumes that there's no adult salmon because it's too small, or there are never any adult salmon caught by fishermen. For the Piva and Tara, he simply doesn't know. Regarding the population trends, we also asked him what his assumption is, if they are decreasing, stable, or rather decreasing. The publication from 2015 says, well, that most stocks are decreasing or stable. Regarding to the Fisheries Association, he says, well, in the Bistrica, it's most likely stable, but this might change now because of these 3 hydropower sites. In the Jehotina, he is optimistic that it is increasing because they have put a lot of effort into protecting the Danube salmon there. Like the Fisheries Association is taking a lot of effort to protect it, to avoid poachers, to hunt them down more or less. And then in the Drina, he assumes it's stable, and also he knows that there are Danube salmon in the Tara, but he doesn't know a lot about it, but he assumes it's stable there. Let's get into the discussion. When you compare those results, you have to say it's rather a low number of adult fish. Here are some figures to compare with. Remember the River Mur I was talking about in the beginning? There, we do have some solid data on the adult fish, and the numbers per kilometer is between 5 and 20 individuals. Or there's also from the Sava River or the Sava catchment, there are good stocks with 6 to 31 adult individuals per kilometer. So you can see that 1 to 5 adult fish per kilometer in the Drina is quite low. The most likely reasons for those low densities is the intensive poaching. And also, of course, the hydropeaking in the Drina River must have an impact, but it's hard to assess it. But poaching is for sure one of the major aspects. Regarding the spawning activity, so what's the discussion or the summary? So due to the ongoing hydropower construction, there is, of course, a big impact on the Bistrica population. So we are facing the loss of breeding areas due to the residual flow sections, due to the hydropeaking impact, which must be assumed there. So remember, we had some 15 spawning sites there. There's a clear threat that those will be lost in the future. The same fate must be assumed for the Sudieska and the Jehotina rivers. Here's also an intensive expansion of energy production plant, which most likely will lead to a severe loss of reproduction and migration and also growth conditions. The Tara and Piva rivers typically do not show spawning activity, which means that the tributaries Jehotina, Bistrica, and Sudieska are of major relevance, for the reproduction. And there is a clear signal and need to maintain those huchen populations there. And this is also, of course, of relevance when you consider the hydropeaking situation in the Drina River, because right now, and as long as the hydropeaking goes on in the Drina, there won't be any successful reproduction. To sum it up, even though the habitat is in a good condition in this area, the huchen population is currently at a low level. And there's a clear indicator that the tributaries are essential for the maintenance of this huchen population there. The main threats, as I mentioned, are poaching at the moment. So the guess from Vladimir was that every year around 100 Danube salmon are caught by poachers. And this definitely needs more attention, and he's actually trying to give his best to get this under control, and he can see some success. I mean, he took over the management there some 5 years or so ago, and he's constantly increasing the pressure to get those poachers under control. But then on the other hand, there's of course this major threat from 14 hydropower plants that are planned and which are also under construction in the tributaries. And in view of those plans, there's an urgent need again for action to ensure that the tributaries are not lost as habitats. And also consideration must be given to protecting the Drina River. But also, I think it's a very important point to restore the hydropeaking in the Drina River. Because when you're able to restore the hydropeaking there, when you get this impact out of the Drina River, then you have a really intact river with a beautiful hydromorphological situation, as you again can see here in this picture, which would be a very valuable habitat for the Danube salmon, but of course also for all the other species that live there, like nace and grayling and all the other species. So with that, I'm done, and thank you for your attention. I hope it wasn't too long, and I'm of course open for questions.